What is going on, guys? Jacob here, Miami Dolphins Syndicate. A video that was not expected to make today, as Brian Flores has responded to the comments that Tua made last week regarding their relationship while they were quarterback and head coach, even going as far as to refer to him as a terrible person, and these were his words on the matter.
Some other things that you guys want to talk about, so I'll address those too. Specific to the comments that were made by Tua, I just want to say, look, I'm happy, genuinely happy, genuinely happy for the success that Tua's had, and I really wish him nothing but the best. The player relationships are very important to me. I think that's kind of the foundation of coaching. I got into coaching because I was impacted as a young guy by my high school coaches, my college coaches, going all the way to Pop Warner. I got into coaching because I want to make that same kind of impact, positive impact, pour into young people, help them become, as KO says all the time, the best versions of themselves. More than anything, I'm just focused on the Vikings, the 2024 Vikings, the players we have. I saw a couple of guys up here just a couple minutes ago, Metellus and HP. I think their leadership, their friendship is important to me, and I'm excited about this group. So, that hit me in a way that I wouldn't say was positive for me. But at the same time, I've got to use that and say, hey, how can I grow from that? How can I be better? And that's really where I'm at from that standpoint. Do I feel like that's me? No, but how can I grow from that situation and create a world where that's not, the case that anyone says that about Brian Flores.
So first thing you notice about Brian Flores and about this situation and how he's addressing the media is he is an expert at coach speak, which is certainly something that he learned with his time with the New England Patriots organization, was able to really just turn it into a positive, talking about his team at the end, notably talking about some of the players of leadership on the Vikings. And overall, didn't get too emotional about it, didn't talk about himself too much, found ways to reflect it to the team. Overall, addressed the situation by saying a lot while also not saying a lot at the same time. And of course, like many things in life, this was a very complicated situation that has been talked at nauseum between the two. Both of them coming in, first-time quarterback in the NFL, first-time head coach in the NFL, and just that unto itself can breed a lot of growing pains between the two of them. And then two very different philosophies between Brian Flores from the work-hard culture up in New England, treat everybody the same, treat the starting quarterback like the third-string linebacker, really workman-like approach, where Tua, coming over from Hawaii, it's a lot more laid back, obviously, shorter in stature, not as imposing of an athlete. Some very different mentalities coming in. Not to say that Tua isn't a hard worker, of course he is. However, just two different personalities, two different types of guys. An offensive guy, obviously, in Tua as the quarterback. A defensive guy is Flores, coming over as the DC from the Patriots. So just to start off the relationship, it makes sense that it was rocky from the jump. As the years went on, you started to notice things come out, reports leak from within the team, some even anonymous sources talking about Tua, talking about the situation between Tua and Flores and how things have gotten worse over time. The Dolphins missed the playoffs. Obviously, that first season, they elect to go with Tua after the bye week, and I don't think it's a decision that Brian Flores wanted to do, but kind of had to based off of people above him making decisions for him. And then just to start off from the beginning, it seems like Brian Flores did not want Tua at all. In fact, rather going with Justin Herbert, which now in retrospect, obviously, well, maybe not obvious to some Dolphins fans, but obvious to me that would have been the better decision. Justin Herbert looks overall like a better quarterback, even though he has struggled with that Chargers team. I do put a lot of blame on the Chargers rather than Herbert himself. So the relationship started with Flores not even wanting Tua, and then just got worse and worse from there. And with this, I can truly understand both sides of the coin. You have Brian Flores from, like I mentioned, the workman-like approach with the New England Patriots. He got to see the greatest coach of all time coach the greatest quarterback of all time, as I mentioned, as the third-string linebacker, just as he would have treated anybody else on the team. That was the recipe that worked for the Patriots. Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Hall of Fame, both the GOATs at their spots, and it worked. Obviously, it was a little rocky towards the end, a little bit when the winning started to drop. And Tom became more of an individual, or wanted to be more of an individual, wanted to be treated like the greatest quarterback of all time. And Bill Belichick was still a bit reluctant to give him that extra respect, give him that extra courtesy despite his greatness. So if you're Brian Flores and you see Belichick treating Tom Brady like that, despite the success, despite the championships, despite the accomplishments, and you look at a kid that comes in who is certainly not Tom Brady, shorter, smaller arm, coming off a pretty significant injury, you didn't want him in the first place, and you saw the approach that worked with the New England Patriots, and as a first-time head coach, usually you just try to directly implement what you saw from where you were before, obviously assuming it was successful, and I believe that's what Brian Flores did. He did not treat Tua with any special treatment. He did not care that he was a top 5 pick in the draft. He did not care he was the starting quarterback. He treated him like he would anybody else on the team, and at the time, Tua wasn't performing very well. He comes in that first game only throwing like 80 yards and really needed some help to win some games and get the Miami Dolphins in playoff contention at the end of the year. Beat a few bad teams at that point, and then the next season, same thing where you start off 1-6, 1-7, I think, even before you go on that run to just fall short at the end of the season to the Tennessee Titans. And there were moments where Tua had to be benched. There were moments where Brian Flores was chewing out Tua on the sideline for something that he didn't like. Brian Flores, that is what he saw work, and that's what he then just directly implemented with the Miami Dolphins. And then now, if you're Tua, you're coming in as a young kid who just had his world rocked with a massive injury that, just a couple decades ago likely would have been a career-ending injury for Tua, and he is still ending up as a top 5 pick. He thought he was going to be the number 1 overall pick probably for 2 whole years, and then he sustains that injury, sustains a couple injuries at Alabama, comes in, is already behind the 8 ball with it being the COVID year, with his injury that he has to deal with. So he comes into the team already not on top of the world where he can be as a NFL quarterback, even as a rookie quarterback, had a lot of things working against him. And then you come in with a very alpha, very brute head coach who is now in his second year with the team, and he's starting to figure out his own identities and what he likes to do as a head coach, but still you have a lot of his core identities coming from that Belichick tree, coming from how the Patriot way was all of those years. So Tua sees this guy, and I'm sure Tua's out there being Tua. He's not out there, being a head case. He's not somebody who is hard to have in the locker room. He's a very relaxed, easygoing guy. Comes in as a rookie, does what he has to do. He's trying to get onto the field, trying to get reps, trying to get healthy. And then you have your head coach seemingly working against you along the way. I was a massive fan of Brian Flores when he was head coach of the team. In fact, I didn't really think it was the right decision to fire him at the time when the team fired him. Back-to-back years, you're on the doorstep of the playoffs, and I had started to side with Brian Flores and think Tua is not the guy, and I still have some of my reservations about Tua, and I'm not sure whether that contract, how big it was, is the right idea for Tua, but certainly he had a great season last year, without a doubt, in the MVP race till late on into the season. And Mike McDaniel has shown us what Tua can be when you give him both the proper support, as in the weapons around him. You're looking at Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, and continuing to add to that despite already having one of the best offenses in football, bringing in Odell, bringing in Jonnu Smith, and drafting 2 wide receivers with later round picks, just trying to flood Tua with talent and help him out along the way. But then also on top of that, put that arm around the shoulder, say, hey, you're my guy. I'm here for you. You are the guy that can lead us along the way. And that's, of course, what Tua talked about, having the complete 180 from Brian Flores come in Mike McDaniel, and how supportive he has been since being the Miami Dolphins head coach. You see in that video, Brian Flores, he sort of says in a way that maybe there are some things that he didn't do the best, but he always tried to do his best job. Notably, he did not apologize in any of the videos that I saw that I put out there for you guys. Maybe there was something else that he came off more apologetical than that, but he mostly said, hey, I was doing my job. I care about the players. I want to have a relationship with the players. He said that's what got him into coaching, because of his high school coach, having that dynamic with the players, that you can be able to talk to them both as player and as person. And just some things got murky along the way. The most emotional and, dare I say, even vulnerable, because it absolutely was not. Nothing about what Brian Flores was talking about was really emotional and vulnerable. But again, that's what we get out of Flores. He is very much a coach speak, goes to the podium, give them a lot without giving them anything, goes to the podium and says, yeah, it wasn't very positive. It wasn't a very positive feeling that Tua said that. And of course, that's some strong words. And I do think Tua calling him a terrible person is slightly taken out of context when Tua is referring to, even if you're the president, if you have somebody come, or if you, even if you're the president, you come in and a terrible person is coming in every day and saying you suck and you don't do good at your job. I don't think he was directly in that moment trying to call Brian Flores a terrible person. I think he just got caught up with talking and got caught up with the situation he was trying to explain, and using the word terrible probably wouldn't have been his first choice if you gave him another opportunity to fully explain himself and go over what he was talking about in that moment. But the words were said. Tua came out. Tua was vulnerable. He completely talked about the situation, and you can tell Tua is a very different man from when that moment happened. He seems a lot more comfortable both as a man and then as a NFL starting quarterback, with the support both on the field and, almost more importantly, emotionally, he has gotten from the Miami Dolphins since that moment. Notably, the Dolphins and Vikings do not play this year, and if I'm not mistaken, we will have to wait at least, I think we're going to have to wait probably 2 more years, unless the Miami Dolphins end up finishing the same place in the division as the Minnesota Vikings, which, with all that's going on with the Minnesota Vikings right now, I highly doubt is going to be the case. Right now, I have the Vikings to finish last in the NFC North, and barring everything going wrong, I highly doubt the Dolphins will finish last. We could finish third, we could finish second, hopefully we finish first in the AFC East, so I don't expect the Dolphins and Vikings to play next year. 2 years from now, or wherever Flores ends up being, eventually these two will probably meet again, and that's going to be something that's very headline worthy at the time. A lot of cameras will be on them, and I'm sure they'll be cordial and businesslike, because Tua is not out there to get Brian Flores. He's not out there trying to point the fingers and saying you're a terrible person, you don't deserve to be where you're at. Tua was just honest and vulnerable in the moment, which was a very difficult situation from him coming in as a rookie. And there's going to be a lot of you, I'm sure, that watch this video and think Tua was just being soft at the moment. Maybe not a lot on this channel per se, because we're all Dolphins fans here. I mean, I got a Tua thing right here behind me. And I'm not even the biggest Tua guy necessarily. I'm a Tua guy in the sense that he's the Dolphins starting quarterback, and I hope he does the best, and I will always root for him as long as he's on the field. But I do have my question marks, but still, I'm a big Tua fan. I wore a Tua jersey to the game on Saturday. But a lot of non-Dolphins fans, especially older NFL fans, are going to look at this situation and just say Tua needs to man up, and he needs to stop being so soft. I saw comments calling him Charmin on Instagram and stuff like that, and I understand, especially older NFL fans, where they're coming from with that, as this is a very different breed of NFL athletes. Caleb Williams is taking a lot of flack from, mostly older football fans, but even some younger ones, just because of his personality and who he is. He's very comfortable in his own skin, is a little bit more flamboyant than some of the athletes previously coming in. He likes social media, he likes to paint his nails, he likes to express himself, and whether you're a fan of that, whether you think he's better off not doing it, that is just the reality of the situation of these new guys coming in. They are a little less tough guy, masculine, 1980s highlights of the Bears, giving everybody concussion on every single play. Whether you think that's better, whether you think it's worse, that is just the reality of the situation. So I don't think Tua is necessarily soft. I think he's just a more vulnerable athlete than what we've seen in the past, and it was refreshing to see him express himself and then completely juxtaposed with Brian Flores, just like the two of them while they were together. Brian Flores, composure, says the right thing, gets to the press conference, didn't even allow the reporter to get the question out. He just straight addressed it, so he didn't even let the reporters catch him in a awkward position where he had to make a bolder claim. He just delivered it to them, and now we got to see how it unfolded. Ultimately, is it that big of a deal? No. Is it cool to see a week before the season, a little bit of tension, even though it's between two teams in different conferences that aren't going to play each other? It's cool. It's interesting. I found it worthy to talk about. This video probably going on 12 minutes now. I think it's a situation that it will be talked about. I don't think it'll ever be fully resolved, as I don't think Brian Flores is ever going to come out and straight up apologize to Tua. maybe when both of their careers are done, kind of like Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have reconciled a little bit now that both of them are away from the Patriots, both of them out of the league, in fact. So maybe that's a situation you'll see between Tua and Flores. However, until that point, until both of them are done, I highly doubt this is ever going to really fully have a lid on it. It's probably not the last time I'll talk about the situation, but thought it was interesting. And Brian Flores, again, not really apologizing, but addressing it, putting it out there, and both people have said their case. What do you think of the situation? Was Tua right? Was Brian Flores right? I have a hard time believing most of y'all will defend Brian Flores, but I'm sure there's a bunch of Dolphins fans that might do that. So one way or another, let me know whose side you're on down below. I think it's a very complicated situation between two guys that were learning to be pros at their specific position. Flores in his second year, third year, and then Tua as a rookie. I think it was just an unfortunate situation between two very different individuals that had two very different ideas of how to man their positions. So let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. Tomorrow you will most likely be seeing Donovan. But till then, again, get down there. Let us know what you think. Hit that like button. Hit that sub button. We appreciate y'all very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Go Dolphins.